Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another showing of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host today, Perrien, and my co-host this week, Russel Glasser.
Hello.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we are live today. It is April 15th, and we're being sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Crescent City Beignets on 6th Street, a couple blocks west of Lamar. Those are every Sunday starting at around 11:30 and going until about 2 o'clock. It's open to any atheist-friendly people. More than welcome to come down. Don't have to be a member of the group or anything like that to come down and enjoy the fun. That's every Sunday, save the third Sunday of the month when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. Today was the third Sunday of the month, so we did have a meeting down there, but it wasn't actually a lecture. It was a vote on some business to attend to for the ACA, new bylaws and such, and from my understanding, our bylaws have been accepted and changed and modified and updated and renewed and revamped and everything else. Should be goodness all around. That is interesting if you're an ACA member. So all of you ACA members out there, yay us. Alright, other regular things that we do, every Monday night we have Godless Gamers at this guy's house. If you want to get on our email list and you are a member of the group, I think you can get details from the website or write to the webmaster at the group, and I believe that gets over to the right person, or at least someone who will have that information handy. That's every Monday night at 7:30. Other regular events that we do, every Thursday night we have Atheist Happy Hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex on the southbound feeder of I-35 just south of 183. That starts at 7:30. It's very much like the Sunday meeting. Don't have to be a member to attend or anything like that. Atheist friendly only, please. But that's a very good meeting, very enjoyable discussion there. And again, that's every Thursday at 7:30. Antonio's Tex-Mex. Also, after the show, we will be getting together for dinner as usual. So if you want to come down and meet some of us, we will be going to Chili's after the show, which is on the southeast corner of I-35 and 183. The show ends at 6 o'clock. We'll be there around 6:40, 6:45, thereabouts. Feel free to come on down and meet and chat and have some burgers. Again, atheist friendly only, please. If you want to give us a call and argue with us, debate with us, show us God, teach us the Bible, whatever it is, that's what this show is for. We are live today. It is May 15th, and it's Sunday. You're more than welcome to call us up and let us know what's on your mind. We'll be opening up the phone lines in a little bit and putting a phone number up. First, we're going to go to Russell and find out what kind of fun our country has been having over in Kansas.
Yes. Well, as most of you may know, evolution is on trial again in Kansas. Newspapers have been saying it's the Scopes monkey trial all over again, and it really kind of is. I've got a couple of links up that I'd like to put on the screen first before I go into it much in detail. But while we're getting that up, I'd like to what I'm going to do is go over what's been going on in Kansas for the past couple of weeks, and then we can maybe speculate about what's going to happen. Anyway, first of all, this top link down here is my new blog.
Kazim's Corner?
Yes.
Okay.
I know, it's a funny... It's a funny sounding name, but it's the username. So it's the username I use in message boards.
Okay.
And it's too boring to explain why now.
Okay.
But I'm bringing it up not for self-promotion, but just to say that a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be covering here, I've provided detailed links to on what's going to be the latest blog entry. Okay. Unfortunately, when I left, my internet was down, but I asked Ginny to
try and put it up.
to hit the post button as soon as it comes back.
Okay.
So it may be there, or there may be an incomplete article there. And this second link, redstaterabble.blogspot.com, is a guy who's living in Kansas and has been writing up some really great first-hand reports from sitting in the courtroom. And so there's lots of very insightful stuff. And lastly, pandasthumb.org, not a blogspot address, but it's still a blog owned by a whole bunch of people, largely the same people who run talkorigins.org. But Pandas Thumb in particular, it's about intelligent design. It's focused on the kinds of shenanigans that those people are trying to do to push their stuff through the political system. And it's kind of a play on the fact that the creationists once released a textbook called The Panda's Thumb. So those are some great links if you want, I mean, not so much the first one, but the other two links are great if you want to keep track of what's going on in Kansas on a day-by-day basis. I check in often, and most of what I'm going to be talking about comes from there. So the first thing I brought with me is a story from May 7th called National Science Groups Boycott Kansas Evolution Hearings. And this is what happened. State and national science groups are boycotting the Kansas hearings on evolution, viewing them as rigged in favor of language backed by intelligent design advocates. In turn, intelligent design advocates contend they've been portrayed unfairly as advocating creationism. Editorial comment, they are. Witnesses trying to persuade Kansas officials to encourage more criticism of evolution in public school classrooms are making statements some scientists say betrayed creationist views. Witnesses in a state board of education hearing on how the theory should be taught also have acknowledged they hadn't fully read evolution-friendly science standards proposed by the educators, which I'll go into later.
Yes, we don't actually know what we're talking about, but we're going to comment anyway.
Right.
So.
Nor had 2 of 3 presiding board members. State and national science groups are boycotting the hearings, viewing them as rigged in favor of language backed by intelligent design advocates. And so basically, there were no scientists there defending the science side, unlike in the textbook hearing, in the Texas hearings.
Yeah.
But our side has been ably represented, I personally think, by the lawyer Pedro, I'm sorry, I'm going to be really bad at pronouncing his last name, but it's something like Irigonegere.
Okay.
However you pronounce his name, he's been doing great. And of course, you hear the news that evolution scientists aren't going to be there, and I think a lot of people I know were like kind of scratching their heads and thinking, well, gee, doesn't that just leave the floor open to the creationists?
Sounds like a big risk.
Sounded like a good idea to me. I think I was the only one.
Okay.
But I mean, they do tend to rig these things, first of all. You remember, and I've talked about the Texas hearings many times, the first thing they did was front-load the hearings, which lasted from something like 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. the next morning.
Okay.
But almost all of the first 2 or 3 hours of speakers were creationists, followed by like 6 to 9 hours of evolution people, because there's a lot more of them, but by sticking them in front, those people got all the press.
Yeah, because the news media shows up at 1 o'clock when the hearings start.
Right.
They hear the first couple hours and then say, okay, we've got an idea, let's go home.
Yeah. Of course, if you listen to their testimony, what they were trying to do was be very, very cagey. I mean, the ones who actually knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of hicks there, too. not to put too fine a point on it. But the ones who actually knew what they were doing, and I'm going to single out William Dembski, because he's somebody who was from Texas, and so he got to speak in the first few hours. And William Dembski is a mathematician who wrote the Design Inference and a bunch of other pop math books that defend, that basically support intelligent design.
Yeah. And
he's a major member of the Discovery Institute, which is basically behind all this stuff.
Yes.
And so people like William Dembski basically avoided talking about a theory of intelligent design because it would be painfully obvious that there isn't one. In fact, there was a bit of unintentional comedy around the wee hours of the morning because somebody West, the head of the Discovery Institute, who was also at this Kansas thing, was basically being grilled by the school board members because they absolutely refused to talk about intelligent design specifically. And they were asking, well, your institute is all about this intelligent design thing, right? And he was like, oh, well, we're not talking about intelligent design, we're just, we also support the valid research into intelligent design. They don't talk about intelligent design in these hearings because there's no science there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's empty.
Yeah.
There's no support in scientific journals, barring one single article that was slipped in that I talked about a couple months ago. Yeah. And what they do talk about is poking holes in evolution, and that's it. Because they hope that by picking at evolution, they're going to then be able to say, intelligent design is the only other theory. The end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
they assume that they're going to win by default.
By default, right?
When that's not the case.
Right. Alan Gishlick, I've quoted this guy a bunch, from the National Center for Science Education, said if you guys really cared about science, you'd be and there were errors in the textbook, you'd be asking to take the errors out.
Yeah.
But you're not asking for that. You're asking to leave these supposed errors in and then criticize them, so that it looks like there's something wrong with the theory.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted to do. They like to stay on the offensive and hammer on evolutionists, except in this case, guess what? The evolutionists weren't there. So the only people who go on the stand to be cross-examined by Pedro, whose last name I will not try to say again, he basically got to play the Clarence Darrow role from, I don't know if you guys have seen Inherit the Wind. Most of you should have. But it's a great old movie that you should rent, and there's this fabulous scene where the defense attorney speaking for evolution gets to grill the character playing William Jennings Bryan and just makes a complete idiot out of him.
Wow.
It's Spencer Tracy.
Okay.
So definitely watch that. But anyway, our boy got in a few good shots. And if there's any doubt left whether it was a good idea for, and I'm going to need a close-up shot in a second. If there's any doubt left whether it was a good idea for the evolutionists to refuse to testify, I want you to take a look at a blog by William Dembski himself from just a couple of days ago. You want to hold it out a little more?
Yeah, you can talk. And
this is a picture on the front of his blog. Blogs are just all the rage these days. That there is a picture of Darwin. This is a plush doll. It has a little tag on the side that says Darwin, and his head is in a vice. It says, "The Vice Strategy," which I guess is an updated version of the wedge strategy.
Yeah, squeezing the truth out of Darwinism,
right?
Darwinists or Darwinism.
The wedge strategy didn't work, so they're going to go to the vice strategy for a while, and maybe they'll move on to some other household tools. Like maybe they'll have the chainsaw strategy next.
The table saw strategy.
Yes.
Okay.
The large blunt hammer. By which we will pound the evolutionists.
Exactly.
This is what William Dembski said. In a crucial way, the Kansas hearings repeat the pattern set by the Scopes trial, which has been repeated many times since. Namely, evolutionists escaped critical scrutiny by not having to undergo cross-examination. In this case, they accomplished the feat by boycotting the hearings. I await the day when the hearings are not voluntary but involve subpoenas that compel evolutionists to be deposed and interrogated at length on their views.
But of course, they don't want to be interrogated.
No, but they were. That's why he's so mad, I think. There are ways for this to happen, or to put it another way, we have ways of making you talk. And the wheels are in motion, e.g. congressional hearings over the teaching of biology in federally funded high schools for military kids. For such hearings to have the desired effect, however, will require that evolutionists be asked the right questions. What I propose is a strategy for interrogating the Darwinists to, as it were, squeeze the truth out of them.
God, this is strangely reminiscent of what the 50s and the whole Red Scare and McCarthyism.
Well,
we demand to bring the communists up here so we can ask them questions and squeeze the truth out of them.
It is kind of like that.
It sounds exactly like that.
Of course, when I called Jeff D about this and joked about this blog and said, look how angry William Dembski is about the strategy, he said, and I'm passing this along as a caveat, don't forget that it's Dembski's job to be angry about what happens, because we know this isn't about science. This is about drumming up support from the troops.
Yeah.
And the way to drum up support, as we've heard a lot in the past when we've talked to fundraising experts, for instance, is to scare them and make them think that horrible things are happening.
Exactly.
So this Dembski thing doesn't necessarily, I happen to think that it validates the evolutionist strategy.
Okay.
But Jeff's right, we shouldn't assume that.
Anything that gets them all riled up, though, has got to be
I'm in favor of that.
Good.
I mean, like, I saw Kingdom of Heaven this week just because it was getting fundamentalists riled up.
Oh yeah, how was that?
I didn't think it was that great, but
okay.
But it had some good parts.
Okay.
Anyway. So, I mean, this is not about science at all. Anybody who's read the wedge strategy knows that. We brought this up over and over again. The wedge strategy says that what they want to do is depose naturalistic science, in other words, science. And the evolutionists, the scientists and educators who actually know what they're doing have simply refused to play that game. Yeah. And so, I say keep the intelligent design guys in the vice, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Keep interrogating them. Ask them, what the hell is your theory? Because there is none.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the clearest indication that this has nothing to do with science is to listen to how aggressively the ID campaign is pushing out memes into the rank and file Christian soldiers. I've been hearing a lot of cute little rhyming catchphrases recently, which I think is really funny. I was listening to Air America Radio this week, and on one of the morning shows, a guy called in. And he says, these evolutionists just want you to think that I was a monkey swinging from a tree and now I'm a doctor with a PhD. And believe me, you listen to this guy, he wasn't talking about himself because he did not have a PhD.
Okay. And it's just amazing that there are people out there who actually accept that.
Yeah,
they think that's what evolution actually says.
Right.
And I can't wrap my head around somebody being that willfully ignorant. I mean, that's right. Willful ignorance at that point.
Well, the intelligent design professionals know at least how to make an argument that sounds like it's got a lot of math and a lot of science. Flagella.
Yeah.
Irreducible complexity. Those are big words. Aren't you impressed?
But that's something that isn't that hard to do.
Yeah.
Anybody can get out there and spout out, these, $1.50 words.
Well, no, not anybody can, which is why they have cute little catchphrases like that. Another one that I really like that I've been hearing a lot on Christian shows and in on news groups and stuff is that evolution means from goo to you by way of the zoo. It's horrible.
I understand why you say it's funny, but yeah, that's pathetic.
Another thing that I might note is that the people on the board who were supposed to be making the decisions clearly weren't paying that much attention to the actual science aspects because my man Pedro made it a point to ask each one of them whether they had read the science standards that were presented for consideration by the scientists.
Okay.
And each one of them said no. and this is from the Kansas City Star, May 7th. One of the school board members leading hearings into possible changes to the teaching of evolution said Friday that she had not read the standards under scrutiny. Board member Kathy Martin of Clay Center said she had not read the entire document proposed by educators and now criticized by proponents of intelligent design. Two sets of proposed science standards are before the Board of Education. One, known as the majority opinion, received support from 18 members of a 26-member curriculum panel and maintains the current science standards for the teaching of evolution. The other proposal, submitted by 8 panelists and called the Minority Report, requires that criticism of evolution and alternatives to the theory be taught. It also offers a new definition of science that does not rely only on natural causes.
So by the way, what definition of science do they want?
Well, I don't know, but what do you call something that's not from natural causes? Supernatural.
So they want science to include the supernatural.
Right, they want magic in science.
Oh boy.
Martin, who said she had doubts about evolution, said many of the science standards proposed by the majority were too technical for her to read thoroughly. She said she had read most of the Minority Report. I scanned, she said. I'm not a word-for-word reader.
I don't read things. I just go by my gut instinct.
Yeah, although I actually hadn't realized that 18 of the 26 members actually support the current science standards, which means that this is not necessarily a foregone conclusion.
Okay.
I had also assumed, as many of us did, that the Texas Board of Education hearings were a foregone conclusion, but in the end they left the textbooks untouched, which is what the evolution side wanted.
Okay.
However, I should warn that I've heard of a proposal going before the legislature right now that the Texas State Board of Education, if this passes, would in the future just get to edit textbooks at their will without going through hearings.
So we're going to have an elected panel
of bureaucrats
who are not necessarily trained in any specific field.
It's safe to assume that almost none of them are trained in science.
Trained in any specific fields, just editing textbooks at their own will.
Right.
Math,
so that they don't
science,
have to go through these painful
sociology.
hearings procedure.
Exactly. Again, I'm sorry, science is not a democratic process.
Right.
It doesn't take popular votes to find out what the truth is. The truth is an objective thing.
Yeah.
And that's what science is trying to find out. If you don't like the truth, I'm sorry.
If you don't like the truth, what you do is come up with an alternative theory, come up with a way to test your theory, and perform the tests and show that they're successful in proving you right. You don't say, well, a lot of people don't like this, and they think that it should be God.
Yeah, it should be something different, therefore we're going to make it so.
Right.
You know, it doesn't work like that.
And as I said, a lot of the professionals who do this all the time know what they're doing in pretending that this isn't about creationism. But the rank and file, the main guys on the street who also got to testify have a different view. According to the Panda's Thumb blog, which I linked earlier, and can I get those links back? Because hopefully I've aroused a little bit of interest. I read on the Panda's Thumb that one of the things that a man got a round of applause for stating this testimony, quote, "Darwin's theory is not scientific. Why do you waste time teaching something in the science class that is not scientific? We must by no means get rid of science. I think the argument is between maintaining scientific approach and inquiry and study and not doing so. But I think truth needs to get a hearing along with scientific theory. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." Thank you.
That got a round of applause.
That got a round of applause. Knowing the audience.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, my point is, you should remember that, because that's what the ID movement is really all about.
Yeah.
The typical citizens of Kansas who were at the hearings know that. They just didn't have enough sense to keep their mouths shut about the real agenda. And Dembski and his homies at the Discovery Institute like to pretend that this is about science and keeping science fair, but don't believe him, believe that guy.
Yeah.
That this is all about, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And I think that should be taught along with the scientific theory.
Yeah.
And finally, I'll mention that there's a fantastic editorial by Ellen Goodman called The Evolution of Creationism. It's in the Seattle Times, May 13th, and I have a link at the bottom of my blog entry, so check that out.
Okay. All right, we can go ahead and put up the phone number now. Like I say, if anybody's got any questions, comments, concerns, or anything like that, please go ahead and give us a call. Going back to what I was thinking a second ago about all of this, though, again, I lost my train of thought with that. But this whole democratic process thing is just, it infuriates me because you have these people who are not trained in any way. They don't have any specific knowledge on this.
Right.
And yet they're the ones making the decisions on what should and should not be taught. Now, I don't know what the best way to counteract that is. Because while I like the general sounding idea of, well, let's get a whole bunch of reputable scientists together to figure out what should and shouldn't be covered.
Right.
Get a bunch of reputable sociologists together to figure out what to be done in sociology class, for instance.
Right.
How do you decide this scientist is reputable and this scientist isn't? How do you keep William Dembski out because he's a flake, and get other people in, because they're good? The specifics on how to work with that are difficult to deal with.
It's true, but I mean, there is such a thing as mainstream science. I mean, like a lot of things, when you don't believe in a God, when you do believe in a God, you've got, this is definitely right and this is definitely wrong.
Yeah.
When you don't believe in a God, or your opinions are not directly informed by a God, which is what I would say about science. I mean, a lot of scientists do believe in God, but they don't, by and large, let that influence their science.
Exactly.
There's a lot more gray area, but on the fringes of the gray area are really dark and really light areas, and evolution happens to fall in a particular really light area where it's pretty clear that the majority opinion is that evolution happened and that it explains nearly everything about the diversity of life on Earth.
Okay.
Now, that's not to say that the science might not change in the future, but they're not really trying to change the science so much as they're trying to change the education.
Exactly.
They're trying to bypass the science and say, well, forget about consensus opinion. I want my opinion taught.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to what you were saying also before. I can't remember who you said mentioned it, but the whole fact of taking the errors out.
Right, Alan Gishlick from the National Center for Science Education.
Okay. Again, like you were saying, if they're being honest about this, they would say, look, that is a problem. We have fundamental issues with this statement here about whatever, and so that's a factual error. Get it removed.
Right, and if it was a factual error,
then it should be removed.
Right.
You should not intentionally try and keep errors and problems in the textbooks so that students can ferret them out. We don't do that with math books. Have the wrong answers in there every now and then so you can learn from mistakes. It's not done like that. It shouldn't be done like that.
Well, I mean, there is something to be said, and I've said this before. I feel like a lot of the things I'm saying are a repeat, but we have new viewers.
It demands being told. Apparently it's not catching on to enough people.
There is something to be said for teaching the way that science is done, and not just teaching a series of memorizable facts. I mean, I have some very bad memories of my biology class where most of the homework involved memorizing the particular words that were in bold.
Yeah.
And I think science needs to be a lot more than it is now about making hypotheses and testing them and thinking of ways to test them that wouldn't allow the experimenter's bias in.
Yeah.
But what these guys are after is teaching that there's some kind of major controversy when there's not. And that is above and beyond anything that would be done about teaching in general the philosophy of science.
Yeah. Because even the teaching that we do now is sometimes difficult, because a lot of times when you do these experiments in class, you know what the outcome is.
Right.
You're supposed to mix these two things together and it turns blue.
Yeah.
And so when you mix them together and it doesn't turn blue, it's like, okay, well, you did something wrong, redo it.
Right.
So it's basically, okay, let's do experiments and get the results that we're looking for. Not quite what's supposed to be taught.
What they should be learning is why they would be doing those particular experiments instead of some others. I mean, maybe they should suggest, we want to test, we want to find out whether a certain thing is true or not. Now you think of a way to run an experiment that would test that, and then let them come up with a way, and then say, okay, now that you've all thought of a way, here's the way that's in the textbook, and let me justify that for you.
Yeah. Let's compare and contrast.
Right.
So
let's compare that to your class solutions.
Yeah. So
I know we have an actual eminent scientist out in the audience, so I'm wondering if I'll get feedback as to whether that's a good idea. But
yes, if you're out there, please go ahead and call
maybe
in.
at dinner.
Because again, this is something that it's being fought time and time again across the country. Again, we went through it in Texas. What was it? A year and a half ago or thereabouts?
Yeah, September 2003.
Okay. Yeah, wow. And now it's going on in Kansas. I know there have been several different places across the country where they're either bringing intelligent design, getting stickers in there to say evolution is just a theory, beware, and all these kind of things. And again, if they were honest, take out the errors. I'm all for that. If they want to have their own ideas taught, perfectly fine. Show that they're valid ideas that have some scientific basis to them. I'm all for it. That's what science is for. Promote that. But if you're just going to nitpick and say, no, we can't have evolution because, nothing could possibly have come about by chance. Just that plea from ignorance that this is far too complicated to possibly come about by chance, therefore it couldn't have. Just because you can't figure it out doesn't mean it's not true. That means that you can't figure it out for one reason or another. So possibly do some studying on it. Figure out what's going on. Find out what actual scientists say and go and see if you agree with it. Examine their conclusions and their ideas and the premises and the way that they've gone about their, experiments or theories or whatever. That's what you should be doing. Just saying, it's far too complicated, therefore it couldn't have happened. That's not science, that's ignorance. So.
We've got nearly empty lines right now.
Yes,
so
again, phone number is on your screen. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and use it.
I think what happens is whenever I come in and talk about evolution, all the creationists are scared.
They know that they can't back it up. They know that they have no arguments.
I always get these messages from the studio to be inflammatory, so there you go.
Yes, we've got people here who actually know what they're talking about. Heaven forbid. So go ahead, challenge it, bring it on.
We could go right to Dave, or I could read this Ellen Goodman editorial. Why don't we hit callers?
Okay, we'll go ahead and take one or two callers. Let's see, we have got Dave. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, what you got for us?
I had to turn my TV down. Hey, I've got a gripe about this intelligent design thing.
Okay.
Just one?
Yeah. Why would it have to be intelligent design? If they want to preach it and say that we all came from whatever, God designing us and stuff, and that God started the nugget rolling that led to our evolution and blah, blah, blah. How is it not possible that, we were a big mistake of a design, like they were emptying out the trash somewhere and a particle fermented and bam.
Yeah.
What about mistaken design? What about...
We're God's first experiment.
Not even God. What happens if, they emptied out the crapper tank and, they had no clue, they didn't clean up the stuff good. And
yeah, we're the dumpster behind Wendy's.
that's right.
Well, I think their whole point is, look at this big world around you. How could this have happened by chance? And so what you're proposing would just be another way of saying it happened by chance, so they'd complain about that.
Well, we did, evolution is the biggest string of chance in the universe. That's what makes evolution great.
Right, and they don't believe in it. So there you go.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Just thought I'd talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot for calling.
Thanks.
All right. Let's see. I think our line's a little bit mixed up here, or perhaps we don't. Mike, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. What you got for us?
This is a little off the subject of evolution, but are you guys are familiar with a TV show called Medium?
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, I've heard of it. It's like a new detective thriller with a psychic or something.
Yeah, she's a psychic. Well, along the lines of you, the atheists are saying they would like to see proof, and that kind of thing. Well, this is based on a true, there's a woman who's a psychic and professes to be a psychic in Arizona named Allison Dubois, and it's based on her life, and she's actually been hired, gainfully employed by the police department there to help solve crimes.
Right.
And my point is, it's not that I don't really care about the evolution, but I think that's such a who cares who had the most runs batted in 1905. But along the lines of, do you think there's anything beyond this life, which might include God? Like when you die, you think you just fizzle up and turn into an ash, but that there's actually, everybody said they've seen dead relatives, who've seen other people. If you think it's all hallucinations or what, but
Well, again, haven't seen any evidence of anything like that, and so I would tend to assume that it's... Again, most of the psychic stuff that I've seen is usually dealing with cold or hot readings. Throwing out, when you've got an audience of 20 people in front of you and say, I'm hearing something from a John, John, maybe a Jake.
Yeah.
You're going to have
a John.
You're going to have a lot of people there, either with that name or whose dad happens to be that name or brother or something. And so it's very easy to make it sound like the information that you have is information you have versus kind of scattershot guesses. And as far as psychics and that type of thing,
and not just scattershot. The point of cold reading is that you sort of narrow in on something, but it's something that your subject already sort of knows.
Yeah.
Or in a lot of cases, with with somebody like a police psychic, and I haven't heard about this particular person, but I would ask whether there's any particular evidence that she's right more often than just being lucky and intuitive, other than the fact that the police have hired you, which could also be explained by police are gullible.
Yeah, but
not you.
Well, the police may be gullible, but if you can say that about anything. But you're just looking for something along the lines of proof. This isn't exactly proof, but it's a step in that direction that somebody's actually taken the time to say, you can't believe the police couldn't be the most cynical people in the world that would say, oh, come on, they've got this. And it's a woman that doesn't really want to be a psychic. She's like, a husband and 3 kids, and she's hampered by this.
Unfortunately, it's profitable, so...
From what I've actually heard...
I have no choice.
Yeah, I haven't looked into the show that much. I do remember reading an article now that you're mentioning it, though. Apparently, most of her fame came from one particular case, which has been pretty misrepresented in terms of what she did versus what random tips and call in and stuff like that actually did. So again, the specifics I'm not too sure, but from what I remember, it's sort of like, again, she says your body will be found in the woods near water, and hey, it was. But again,
but like about that show, John Edwards.
Yes,
not the candidate, but the guy who
left behind.
The guy who talks to dead
live
people.
imitation of that, where the guy's like, "Your name John? No, get out of here. Your name Jeff? What are you doing talking? Go ahead."
Yeah, but it's not only the fact that he does a ton of cold reading and not all that skillfully even, but it's also the fact that you get 10 hours of tape for every 1 hour of actual show, which means that he can throw out, 10/11ths of everything that he does, and just pick the stuff that really looks impressive. And that's another common technique with psychics, which is that they don't keep good records on how their performance has been in the past. They get 1 or 2 really lucky hits, and they can say, oh, well, forget about all the things I said that were completely off the wall in the past. I have this 1 hit.
Yeah. Also, I'm getting notice from the studio. Apparently, there's a critique of the show Medium in the new Skeptical Inquirer.
Oh, excellent.
Exactly which edition it is, I'm not too sure, but hit the bookstores. You might be able to find Skeptical Inquirer, and they might have something on it. So, might be worth looking into.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
I'm bothered. I have always been a little bothered by this trend of fictionalizing and sort of glorifying the whole supernatural thing. It's one of the reasons why I was never into the X-Files.
Okay.
I mean, shows that are fantasy and know they're fantasy, I'm all for.
Yeah.
But the X-Files, every single week you had the one guy being credible. Giving all this credibility to the supernatural explanation. The guy saying the truth was out there, and then the other person being skeptical, and the skeptical person is always wrong. And of course, that's fiction. But it sort of drills the pattern into the audience's heads, though, that skeptics are just closed-minded people who are always wrong.
Yeah. I'm kind of torn on some of those things, because on one hand I can see the science fiction in it, the storyline.
Right.
Revelation is something I meant to watch a couple episodes of. I think I watched the 2nd episode only. And I thought it was good. Mm-hmm. I didn't find it. Left Behind was so far over the top being preachy that I could not watch that without gagging. But Revelation seemed pretty good. The 1 episode that I saw, and I just haven't managed to catch it again.
I saw 3 episodes. That show has jumped the shark big time.
Okay.
By the 3rd episode, it was just like wall-to-wall Bible quotes.
Okay.
I couldn't sit through it anymore.
Okay, well, only watched 2nd episode, so. Anyway, go on to yet more callers. We have got Tony, you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I was listening to the part about the intelligent design,
Yep.
and it sort of occurred to me that who's to say this is the most intelligent design we have anyway? I mean, if you think about it, who's to say that we're supposed to breathe? Who's to say that the way we breathe is even the best way to breathe?
Yeah.
Right.
Who's to say we can't take it in through our skin, through our feet, defecate through the top of our head,
Well, that would be messy, but yeah.
I mean, we're just, we're born like this. That's it. That's all we know. But who's to say if we wanted to believe in the most intelligent design, then how are we to say that this is the best?
Yeah.
I mean, we run around and kill each other.
And there are several instances where you can point out and say, no, this isn't the best. For instance, our eyes are made backwards in the sense that the cells that actually detect the light have blood vessels going on top of them.
Right.
And so you're not getting all the light that you could be. It's not as clear as it could be.
That's the why we have a blind spot thing?
Partly that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, also, just the fact that we have a blind spot. Squid eyes, for instance, are significantly better than ours. Just in the way that they're designed, in their acuity and all of that. Squid have better eyes than we do. Are theirs the best? Probably not, but it's better than ours. And we're supposed to be like, the height of everything in the world, and the best design.
Just the fact that there are so many different designs clearly indicates that, if one of them is the best, then there must be a whole bunch of not the best designs. It's almost as if God was designing things by trial and error.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. That's the way I feel. I mean, when you come down to the whole thing about God, if he's God, and if there's a God that's all-knowing, all-purpose, and just, everything about him is just already known before it's even done, what's the purpose of putting us here? If you already know what we're going to do, our reactions, our thoughts, everything from the time we're born to death, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
Skip to the end act.
Yeah. He knows who's going to go to heaven, who's going to go to hell, who's going to have these lives of, 80 years of misery and pain and then die and go to hell. He knows all of that, yet apparently didn't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
I
always thought that if God was so bothered by abortion, then why not just, keep the soul out of the fetus?
Exactly. Exactly. So, caller, are you still there?
We lost him.
Apparently not. It sounds like he went away. So.
I'm thinking the studio does. Never mind.
Are we having issues?
No. I was saying that from the note earlier, I wasn't sure whether they wanted us to take line 1.
Oh, okay. All right.
I guess they've resolved that. So if something goes wrong with this call, it's their fault.
We'll find out. Okay. Thorn, are you there?
Yeah, so...
Okay, what you got for us?
How do y'all feel about the evolution thing? Do you think it really came from monkeys, or do you think it's something a little bit on...
Have you studied evolution at all?
Somewhat. I watched this thing on Discovery Channel, and it was like, they were talking about, like, Eve, like from the Bible, Adam and Eve kind of thing. And they were talking about, like, they have, like, this group that was supposedly, it was an African, hold on, I have a bit of a speech impediment. They were talking about this African-American woman.
Doesn't have a speech impediment.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for the warning, studio.
Yeah, okay. All right. Actually, we were talking about the movie that you went and saw.
Yeah.
I can't remember. But as a little side note,
yes.
I did go see Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
And
so did I.
that has a very interesting scene in it about the religion that believes that the universe was seized into existence by some cosmic being.
The Jartridids.
And they actually have, the scene of their church service and, the priest up there praying, saying, Lord, let us be wiped away by the handkerchief, the eternal white handkerchief.
Yeah.
And it just goes on and on. And it's like, wow, you changed 1 or 2 words here and you've got Catholicism in there.
Yeah, my favorite part of that scene, and that was by no means a perfect movie or a great rendition, but I thought it was not nearly as bad as some people were saying.
Okay.
But at the end of that scene, instead of amen, all the audience goes, achoo. And then the preacher says, bless you. Yeah, well, Douglas Adams was an atheist, of course, and he's got all sorts of great stuff, including one that popped into mind when we were talking about whether the design is really the most intelligent possible. It's the analogy about, imagine you have a puddle of water waking up one morning, and it says, well, this is an interesting hole I find myself in. Why, it seems to fit me just perfectly. It must have been made to have me in it. Exactly.
I was like the other one, too, from somebody else, can't remember. Says the nose was so perfectly designed to hold a pair of glasses.
Yes.
It must have been designed like that.
But can I take just a minute to clear up something that Thorn said? No, we didn't evolve from monkeys.
Yes.
The theory of evolution says, simplest possible form, everything has a common ancestor. They tend to branch out from simpler to more complex, although it really has to do mainly with survival value. So, I mean, essentially it all went from one-celled organisms and then spread off into different categories like plants and animals, and then smaller categories like mammals and reptiles. And what you should be saying is, we share a common ancestor with the ape family. In fact, technically, according to scientific classification, humans are apes. They're a subclass of apes.
Yeah.
But humans and monkeys would be cousins under evolutionary theory, not descendants directly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that was a crank call, but...
Yeah, detail, but extremely important details.
Right.
Because, yes, we did not come from monkeys by any stretch of the imagination. That is not what they propose by any... Again, that's not what they say. All right, do have one quick article we can go over here. again, this is a live call-in show where it's May 15th and we're live today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, go ahead and give us a call. Phone number is, I believe, yes, on your screen. All right, but a quick note here. I'm sure the Pope is going to be coming up every now and then. The new guy on the block, I guess, kind of test him out and see what he's got to say and so on. Apparently, according to the Pope, Satan is still at work in the world unleashing evil energy, but God will be the final arbiter of history, said Pope.
That's good to know.
Speaking at the third general audience since his election last month, the Pope also said that nations and leaders had to look for God's hand in history in the past and learn from it. Now, what kind of lessons you can learn from it, I'm not too sure. Is God's hand in everything in history? For instance, World War II, 9/11, the Crusades, all of this kind of stuff. Is he in that? Or is he just in the good things of history? So, what can we learn from this? Doesn't say. He urged Catholics to look for and recognize what he called hidden divine interventions in history. So again, look for where God may be playing a part of this and praise him for such. I don't know. But again, how to recognize his hand in history? Oddly silent on that one. So perhaps we should assume that God is in everything in history and therefore completely irrelevant. Because we have good news and we have bad news. Good things happen and bad things happen. Therefore, we can't know anything about this God, which usually many religious people claim. God is so complex, he's so far above anything that we can know, that we can't possibly understand his plan. In which case, why bother trying? If we can't possibly understand it, we're not going to, don't bother trying. It's a waste of your time. Because if he's going to, on one hand, do all these really good things in the world, and then on the other hand, do all these really bad things in the world, you're not going to understand it. Just forget about him, let him do his little things, and who cares about it? Because apparently he don't make any sense. All right. Again, it is, what time is it now anyway? We're having technical issues in the show today, so we've got about 35 minutes left. So again, any questions or comments, please go ahead and use the phone number.
Yes.
Did you have any other articles?
Hard to fill up that line today, which I think again proves my theory that the creationists are scared.
Exactly, they ain't got any response.
Yeah,
They realize the vacuousness of their statements.
Guys who do Defense of the Faith watched us from time to time.
Oh yeah, they're fun.
Well, we could do a couple of things. We could read this article by Ellen Goodman, or we could talk about movies.
What other movies are there? Or actually,
Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah, what are the details on that? Because it looked good, and I heard that it's making everybody mad. So that's
a movie about the Crusades, and the Crusades were not a flattering time in history for Christianity. So, in general, fundamentalists don't care for movies that that tend to focus on that.
Don't take kindly to the Christianity.
But basically, the movie seemed to have kind of an even-handed take on the Christians on the one hand and the Muslims on the other hand. And both of them had violent thugs in there, and both of them had fairly reasonable people in there. And there was a lot of cool fights. This is the director of Gladiator.
Okay.
So if you like that sort of thing, then here's some more of it. It did have one message which I kind of liked, and I think not even all atheists will agree with me on that. But you know, there was this sort of uneasy peace between the Christians who were controlling the city of Jerusalem at the time and the Muslims who vastly outnumbered the Christians but wanted to get into Jerusalem. But basically there were a couple of leaders there who were reasonable people who basically sort of had this implicit agreement that, you know, we don't agree with you, you don't agree with us, but, you know, we're not going to attack you and we expect the same courtesy.
Okay.
And then one of the aforementioned violent thugs ascended to power after the king died. And the first thing he did was go pick a fight with the Muslims, and the end result of the movie is that a lot of people died.
Okay.
That's not too much of a spoiler.
Okay.
And I think one of the messages that I would find positive in the movie is try not to make enemies out of people who don't really have a reason to antagonize you.
Yeah, if they're crazy, don't piss them off.
Right.
All right.
You should be free to say that they're crazy, but that doesn't mean that you should, try to annihilate them.
Yeah, you don't pick a fight with them.
Right.
So, all right. I've got a couple callers lined up, but again, phone lines are pretty much open. So if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and give us a call. Johnny, you there?
Hey, how you doing?
Okay, what you got for us?
I'm actually, I watched a few weeks back, and I actually asked y'all a question, and I'm actually going bald now, and I was seeing if I could be on the show as an atheist.
No.
No, you are not cool enough to be an atheist, sir.
All right. Let's see here. I've got a couple quotes here which are relatively eyebrow-raising. Though the source is fairly obvious once you say it. Pat Robertson. Apparently, this goes on to talk about the whole Justice Sunday, which was on April 24th. It was apparently when they're talking about having the whole judges in courts and that type of thing. They're trying to say,
yes, Justice Sunday.
Yeah, I think Jeff talked about that for a little bit.
Right.
But some of these quotes that they have in this article by Pat Robertson, now these are from a couple of years ago in the 700 Club, so these aren't, last week. But things that are interesting. You say you're supposed to be nice to the Episcopalians and the Presbyterians and the Methodists and this and that and other thing. Nonsense. I don't have to be nice to the spirit of the Antichrist. The Constitution of the United States, for instance, is a marvelous document for self-government by the Christian people. But the minute you turn the document into the hands of non-Christian people and atheistic people, they can use it to destroy the very foundation of our society. So apparently, again, according to this nutball, America was founded by, for, and basically due to Christians. Bollocks.
And if those atheists get their hands on the Constitution, they could destroy the country.
Exactly. So, let's see. But on Justice Sunday, going back to, the now, let me see. Who was it that actually said this? Reverend Albert Mohler said, any belief system leading away from the cross of Christ and toward another way of ultimate meaning is indeed wicked and evil. Therefore, Muslims, Hindus, atheists, Jews, any other religion that you care to mention is
or lack
is not just incorrect or misguided, but wicked and evil. According to this, again, Reverend Albert Mohler, who was talking at the Justice Sunday thing. These people, again, just annoy me because they don't realize what it is that they're actually doing. We have religious freedom in this country, and that's typically a good thing. Not just for, the godless atheist or something like that, but it helps all religions or non-religions. Again, it allows you to say what you want to say, and the government is not going to impose upon that. They're going to allow you to say what you want to say. Again, if you're in a Muslim country, would you want the government to say, I'm sorry, you're Christian, you can't have a say here. We don't buy into your thing, that's just a bunch of your namby-pamby little religion. It's not the true religion. So, but again, as long as it's your religion, then it's okay. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. Anyway, we're going to go on to callers. We will see. Let's see. We have got Dawn, I believe.
It's Vaughn.
Okay. What you got for us?
I mean, the show, man. I'm still bald, dude.
And you're still a waste of life. All right, let's see if we've got anything else of interest here. Got this a couple weeks ago. We were preempted a couple weeks back by the Mormons.
Oh.
Just matter of chance, we get this on the door, which is, there's apparently a San Antonio temple of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints opening up.
It's one of those giant Disneyland castle temples. I love those.
Yeah, actually, if we get a zoom in on that, that wouldn't be all bad. It's got a nice little picture on there. But it's a relatively good pamphlet. I mean, it's of a decent size. You can see they got somebody standing on top, big old gold statue and everything. But again, it's a relatively good pamphlet. It's roughly long, 15 pages. But it goes into what their general beliefs are, even sort of like a mini FAQ on the back page. Talks about some of the misconceptions, I guess, that are out there. It says, do you favor polygamy? And they say, absolutely not. And they go against that, and so it's got some interesting.
They don't? Are they against polygamy?
They do not support polygamy. And I believe that has been, like the majority stance.
Okay.
For like maybe 40 years or something like that.
All right.
30 years so. So it's been a little while.
I know many Mormons and they're not polygamous, so I guess that shouldn't surprise me.
Exactly. So again, exactly where, I know that there are some who still do, of course. But, where the majority of them stand, I'm not too sure.
We had one of those big white Mormon castle temples in San Diego where I went to college.
Okay.
And my roommate used to say that if I ever have more money than I can possibly spend, what I'd like to do is buy the land across the street and build an identical temple that's black.
Yeah. All right, let's go and take a couple callers. We have got about a half an hour left in the show. Also, a quick reminder to any atheist-friendly viewers who are watching the show. We're going to be going down to Chili's on the southeast corner of I-35 and 183 after the show. So if you want to come down and meet some of us and have some burgers and fries, you're more than welcome to do that. The show ends at 6 o'clock. We'll be down there around 6:40, 6:45, thereabouts. So, we've got callers. Judd, you there?
I'm certainly here. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. What you got for us?
Ashley, I confused you last time I called about atheists not being sexy. Do you remember?
Yes.
That whole thing? Someone called about homosexuality, and you explained that atheists have no view on homosexuality or sex.
Okay.
And you had evidently incorrectly said something about atheists not being sexy, and that was that whole thing. So just to get it straight, I set up my whole thing. Well, I certainly am sexy, and I'm an atheist. Okay.
Okay.
Secondly, I also have to say that one man's religion is another man's belly laugh. If you think this country is actually free, I cannot fathom anyone believing that. I can't think of any atheists that are in any political position in this country, or even Jews. It's all Christianity.
Yeah, but I also
every bill that is passed is passed by someone with a Christian belief, and their morals are therefore.
And while I understand that, I'm also not seeing all that many, atheists who are being persecuted, killed, or imprisoned because of their religious views.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, there is, and you're also talking about the untouched, they say, and I guess it's in Romans, or maybe, I think it is in Romans, where the untouched shall perish. If they don't believe in Christianity, they will die during the Armageddon, and he's an all-forgiving God. He's not doing a very good job, because just because they weren't touched by Christianity doesn't mean that they should die. And we're talking about everyone. There's a new movie coming out. Damn, I can't remember the name right now.
The God Who Wasn't There, maybe?
Pardon me?
The God Who Wasn't There, maybe?
No, but he isn't there. But it's another one about the Crusades.
That's what you were
Kingdom of Heaven?
Yeah, I just talked about that.
Right. I just turned on you guys, but it definitely shows the Christians in their best view and their best light of trying to get rid of the Muslims totally, and we blame Muslims for everything now. That they're evil. It's an evil religion. Well, let's look at Christianity through the history.
Yeah, well,
Thank you, guys.
I said that the movie was fairly even-handed, although I think in the end, like a lot of movies do, it sort of gave the nod to a general spirituality being a good thing, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, that general spirituality depends on what your definition of spirituality is, but
Right.
True.
I don't think you guys are non-spiritual just because you're atheist. I know I'm not non-spiritual because I'm an atheist, and I think I've explained this before to you, Ashley.
Yeah.
We talked about it. So.
Yeah, I mean, there are good reasons not to believe in certain things, like
in God, Jesus Christ, there's a real good reason. It's obvious.
Yeah, but what I mean is beyond religion, and specifically God and Jesus, just general things, and I'm trying to think of specifics like, astrology, psychic powers, telekinesis, homeopathy, New Age stuff. There are good reasons not to believe in those things because they have no basis in evidence. No basis in science. It's just.
But there are those that believe in those. They go to psychics, and they you're not going to psychics. Great example. I lived in Tucson, Arizona, and I was part of the Tucson 4th Street Merchants Association, and this person came to me. She said, "Well, do you think it would be a good place to open up a tarot card reading, a psychic store?" And I said, "Well, shouldn't you know?" Why did you ask me?
That was pretty good.
But you guys do a great job, and love you, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
Thanks.
Also, I think you had sort of alluded to this earlier, or at least mentioned things that had come up before, in the Showtime series. By Penn and Teller.
Yes, whose name we should not say for fear of the FCC.
Exactly. We will just
BS.
abbreviate it to BS. If you have a chance to watch some of those episodes that are, based on religion or something like that, that's definitely something to look into.
Yeah.
They do some great takes on religion in general, the Bible specifically. A lot of the New Age stuff, they go into John Edwards, and I forget who the other guy is, but the big psychic or speak to dead people medium.
Although we were talking about them last week, and one thing that they do that I don't particularly like is that they tend to oversimplify the things that they're making fun of. They clearly pick the stupidest representatives of who they're going after, and the most eloquent representatives of people who oppose that. And I understand it's a half-hour show and they can't get that much nuance in it, but it feels really.
The one that really got to me is they did one on exercise and fitness.
Okay.
Basically showing that if you buy this new $20 item off of the home shopping channel, it is not going to make you into one of these muscle-bound guys that they have on the commercial. It doesn't work like that. Genetics play a huge part of your body shape and how muscular you can and most likely will be and stuff like that.
Right.
But they went a bit too much into that and saying it's genetics. And they didn't bother to say that
I heard about
if
that.
you actually do exercise, you will be better off.
Yeah.
Exercise is a good thing. Eating right is a good thing. You will lose weight and you will be, more healthy.
Yeah, and
they didn't go into that enough.
I heard about that, and I remember thinking that I lost like 30 pounds a couple of years ago, mainly from exercising a little bit and eating less and eating a little bit less and a little bit better. It was just sort of improving things all around, and it lost me 30 pounds in about 6 months.
Exactly. I did the same thing a couple of years back.
So it can't be just genetics. There's got to be a behavior component.
Exactly. And they just didn't focus on that end of things enough as a caveat to say, this $20 machine isn't going to do the job, but a little bit of exercise is a good thing. So anyway, still a very entertaining show. Definitely worth watching if you got the time and Showtime. All right, so let's go on to... yes, possibly.
Okay.
Cole, you there?
Yeah.
Yep, what you got for us?
How you doing?
Okay.
Listen, I read a little bit recently about, I guess before, ancient times, there was a guy, Zoroaster, some kind of prophet or whatnot.
The Zoroastrians.
Yeah, and it was pretty interesting. I guess he introduced the whole idea of, like, heaven and hell to the Judaism religion.
Okay.
I was going to see if you guys, I don't know how,
I'm not too sure.
you guys are on Christianity or whatever, but
Yeah,
I was going to see if you could comment on him.
I have heard of it. I don't know too many details on that. The one that usually comes up is there's another one out there that was around a couple hundred years before Christianity called Mithraism. And it was their prophet Mithra or something, who was basically born on December 25th, was a prophet of God, who claimed to be God in human form, had 12 disciples, died on a cross, rose from the dead, and it's basically just you change a couple names and you've got Mithraism, change a couple more, you got Jesus. The Zoroastrians, I have heard them. I don't know any specifics on it, though, on exactly what it is, when it was, what they believed, anything like that, though. So, sorry.
I just haven't gotten around to, I guess, studying it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right,
I have better things to do with my time. Thanks for calling.
Good call.
All right. Let's go on to another couple of callers. Again, we got about 20 minutes left on the show. So, like I say, we're going out to dinner afterwards. If you're atheist-friendly people, come down and join us at Chili's, and like I say, have some burgers and fries. All right, let's go on to Bill. You there?
Hey, man, how's it going?
Okay.
This is actually a serious call. I'm not trying to hate on you on nothing.
Okay, consider yourself on probation.
Yeah, you realize that when you start by saying this is actually a serious call, you make us think you're a crank.
Exactly.
Well, I called in earlier today and said something about the.
Consider yourself on probation. What you got?
Okay. What do y'all think about having Christians come down there so people can get just different? I'm not talking about today's show, but people can get different views of what a Christian has to say versus an atheist.
Yeah, we've actually discussed that several times amongst people in the show and stuff like that. And usually it comes down to they have more than enough time to express themselves on...
Y'all don't have any?
Well, not nearly as much. They've got the entire Channel 11. Pretty much 24-hour, wall-to-wall Christianity.
And it's still not enough.
I mean,
and this channel, it has its shows. They have cable networks devoted to it. And so giving them yet another mouthpiece on the Atheist show, I have issues with that. They are more than welcome to express their views on this show. That's why it's
your show's a lot. I think your show's a lot better than the shows on Channel 11. That stuff. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Y'all are atheists,
so like I say, that's why it's a call-in show. We definitely want Christians to call in, express their views. We're going to give them as much time as they want.
Calling in, I think y'all should have an actual, not every show or take one show out of every month or something. Have a Christian come on so people can ask y'all both questions.
Yeah.
See both different points of view.
Exactly. And like I said, we've batted that around back and forth. It definitely comes up from time to time. The idea of it. I can see pluses and minuses. So it's on the plate.
Well, hey man, would y'all let me on the show?
So all right. Okay. Got anything else for us?
Yeah, I was going to ask, would y'all let me on the show?
Probably not now.
No?
You've been too unreliable on the phone.
I'll tell you what, if you come hang out at the meetings, get to know
I'll go to
people.
Chili's and stuff. I know y'all going to Chili's.
Yeah, and again, atheist-friendly people only, so.
It's only atheists?
Yes.
And atheist-friendly.
Y'all have secret meetings and stuff, Bohemian Grove?
Well, yes, we do, but we can't tell you about those.
Exactly.
Y'all familiar with Bohemian Grove? Y'all have Atheist Grove?
No. We're going to go ahead and let you go at this point. Thanks for calling in, though.
All right.
Yeah, in terms of on the plate, as in it's something that we've thought about.
It's in somebody's head.
Exactly. It's not really a serious discussion because, again, we've gone over that amongst ourselves quite a few times and usually comes out to being not such a hot idea. So anyway, let's go on to...
I don't see any point in turning this show into another, crossfire where people shout at each other for the entire show.
Yeah. Though that could be fun.
It could be fun. But not once a month.
Yeah. So, anyway, yet more callers. Let's go on and take them. Robert, you there?
Yep, I'm
okay,
here.
what you have for us?
Well, I was just listening to the show, and first thing I wanted to do was apologize for any Christians that you gentlemen have come across in your lifetime that's been disappointing to you. I know that there's a lot of people that proclaim to be Christians that are so shallow spiritually that it'd be better if they just kept quiet.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they do a lot of talking when they don't really know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, we do understand that it's usually the most vocal fundamentalist wackos who are out there on TV and basically the most vocal.
Like us.
But we know that 90% of Christians are not of that bent of, Jerry Falwell, for instance.
Right. Well, sometimes I watch a show for the last, I guess, year or two off and on.
Okay.
And it just seems like a lot of Christian people have said and done things that are disappointing. And so it's first of all, it's just out of ignorance and how shallow they are in their spiritual walk. Christianity is a very independent individual thing, and there's so many different levels and depths as far as spirituality.
Yeah.
And so it's disappointing when I hear y'all and other people make fun and light of Christians because most have no ill intent. They really mean to do well.
Well, but you agree that a lot of the particular Christians we make fun of.
Do what?
You agree that a lot of the particular Christians we make fun of kind of deserve it, don't you?
Well, I don't know if they deserve it. I just think that's best.
You just said yourself that they're shallow and
right. But see, I don't think making fun and light and embarrassing and whatever each other really empowers us.
And usually, sometimes when we bring up those stories, it's not so much to make fun of, but a lot of times the Christian argument is that you need religion to be a good person, or religion makes you a good person.
Religion is what's caused most of our problems on planet Earth.
And that's the other side of the coin that we hear about too.
Right. Well, it really is, because when you think about it, there's so many hundreds of thousands of different type of religions, and they all claim, well, we're the only one that's right.
But yours is the really right one, right?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
No, I'm not proclaiming any religion at all.
Yeah.
So I'm not out here this faith or that faith or this denomination at all.
Yeah.
Is that as far as Christ and disciples and followers, the name Christians is tacked on to those people because they were followers of Christ.
Yeah.
And most of those people in those days, we don't have a clue how tough it was as far as you being entertainment, being slaughtered in the arena by the Romans because you believed in a being that believed in love and kindness and forgiveness, etc. Yeah. And that's really what Christ was all about.
Yeah, and while we do, I definitely understand your point about the religion of Christianity and what specific Christians may be doing. But also some of the issue that we have and what we try to focus on is Christianity, amongst other religions, but Christianity does have its issues and its problems, and we focus on that, as in the fundamental tenets of Christianity. I'm not saying that this wacky Christian over here is doing something stupid. I'm saying the fundamental tenets of Christianity, that there's a God who created the world, punished everyone for original sin, sent Jesus down who died for our sins, rose from the dead, and now we're all saved through faith in him. If you don't believe any of that, pretty much, you can't be a Christian. That's pretty much fundamental to it. There are serious moral, ethical, theological, scientific problems with that whole story. So regardless of what Christians may be doing, Christianity itself, the beliefs of it, are also not good.
Well,
it's got problems.
Well, actually, when I look at whether it's evolution or creation or people's theories, there's nobody that can go back X amount of billions or millions or thousands of years that really know everything. We all, whether you're a scientist or just a thinker, we use logic and reason.
To a certain extent, yes, but science also uses evidence.
Evidence, right.
They can actually go dig stuff up out of the ground.
Right, no, I agree.
Right, repeatability, predictions,
Exactly.
etc.
Right, but unfortunately, I don't think that any of our great scientists or whatever has all the answers about the beginning. And
No, but they would be the first to tell you that.
But they've got pretty significant evidence pointing towards this general area.
Right. Well, my point is that really I think that as far as whether in creation theory or evolution,
There is no creation theory.
Really?
Basically, according to them.
Do you know what theory means?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell me what theory means?
Yes, I do, but we're kind of limited on time. I'd like to finish what I was going to say. My point is between evolution and creation, they really kind of go hand in hand. Because whether I believe that there's an evolution process, I'm not an atheist, but I believe that there is an evolution process. It doesn't mean that you have to believe only one side only or the other side only. But really,
Agreed.
I think they combine or they overlap or they intertwine.
I would agree that you don't have to throw away one to believe in the other.
Yeah, I agree that they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
I only agree that they overlap to the extent that we would assume that creationism is true in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, and the problem is that we haven't seen any evidence of any supernatural involvement in the creation of life or anything like that. We haven't seen any evidence of it.
Right.
Therefore, to say that it goes hand in hand and it kind of intertwines with it, not necessarily.
Well,
again, there's no evidence of it. Therefore, we should basically leave it out and assume that those parts are just unanswered.
Right.
So far.
Right. Okay. Well, all I can say is that I'll give an example, and this is just an example, as to where in Genesis where it speaks of God creating light, and there was light. And in evolution or in theories about the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang theory, is that I really think that they could really go hand in hand. Is that on the Christian side, they believe that God spoke it into existence, and at the same time, the Big Bang theory, if that's true, of the galaxy's life coming to, could be at the same time.
Right, but that's really shoehorning in, something that we already that you guys already believed about the Bible into discovered scientific facts. I mean, they didn't come up with the Big Bang Theory, for instance, just by reading the Bible and thinking about what it means. The Big Bang Theory came after making certain observations about the light that's reaching us from various places in the universe without reference to... I mean, what I'm saying is that the Bible hasn't been much of a useful way of finding stuff out in the past. It's easy to retrofit the Bible, or sometimes not so easy, but you can retrofit the Bible into things that science has discovered, like all of a sudden, you discover, hey, it's okay for the Earth to go around the sun, because if you read the Bible a certain way, then it doesn't really contradict that. But you wouldn't have figured out from reading the Bible that the Earth goes around the sun.
Well, I don't know how much you've read the Bible, but the Bible...
I've read it.
Huh? Beg your pardon?
I've read it.
Good. I read stuff, and I hear stuff on the news nearly every day of my life about places on planet Earth that the Bible spoke of and was written.
Yeah, but at the time that the Bible was written, those places were contemporary. I mean, it's like Spider-Man. Spider-Man. Well, I mean, Spider-Man lives in Spider-Man lives in New York, right?
Uh-huh.
New York's a real place, right?
Uh-huh.
And future historians, after New York has crumbled to the ground, might look back at Spider-Man and say, hey, maybe there was a real place called New York, and then archaeological evidence would prove that it's right. But that just proves that the author was writing about a place he actually knew, New York. It doesn't mean that Spider-Man was real.
I see. Well, when I read and hear about on the news about Jerusalem and the whole Middle East, the Euphrates River, and etc., is that the Bible is accurate about many things that to this day are still there, that was there thousands of years ago, that were written.
And that's no surprise, is all I'm saying.
Okay, well, I hear y'all laugh and joke about the Bible as if it's some kind of joke. And to when you think about it, thousands of years ago, educated people wrote just like...
about things of their day.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so and I find it refreshing that today places are there today as they were thousands of years ago. And so I do have some faith and belief in the accuracy of the Bible. So to throw it out and make fun of it, and as if it's
well, and we don't intend to make fun of it. We intend to basically say that this is one book with a story in it that has some references to real things.
Right.
If you look at the writings of the Egyptians in the Book of the Dead, for instance, it references actual people and places in the Egyptian history, essentially.
Right.
And those exist. The Nile, Egypt, the Tutankhamun, and so on, they actually existed.
Right, and that's
but that doesn't mean that we have to take the Book of the Dead and sailing on the Nile towards the sun in the afterlife, and your heart will be weighed against the feather of knowledge. That doesn't mean that we have to accept that as truth.
Right.
There's some bits in the Bible that are based on reality. I accept that totally.
There's a lot.
But to say that there's a God who created the world...
Beg your pardon?
But to take that and to assume that everything in there is true, including God creating the universe and the tribulation and all of this stuff, that's taking it a bit too far.
Right. Okay. Well, I can understand, because some things you really have to go by faith and to believe, and so that if you
don't agree with that.
Yeah, but we don't agree with that in any way.
Having faith, you don't have faith in anything.
Not in the way you're using it. No.
What would be your definition, I guess, of faith?
Faith. It's to believe. Put it into a definition. Faith is that inside of me, I believe that the Word of God is true and accurate. I have faith.
With or without evidence. I mean, is faith the same thing as just believing something? Because I mean,
see, to me, faith is believing. Faith is believing in things that you don't always have evidence. There's things that are in the Bible that there is evidence. There's things in the Bible that you either choose to have faith and believe, or if you just go by logic and reason and proof, you can't. And that's the difference in spirituality.
But shouldn't you put more trust in things that are based in logic and truth and evidence than just someone saying so?
I do that, and you do that in your everyday life.
Okay.
Every day you go by logic and reason and thinking,
because it works.
Rational decisions.
Right. But to say that there's something somehow noble or uplifting or particularly good about believing something that you don't have evidence for, that we don't agree with.
Okay. Well, if I have to go by only what I have evidence on, such as, let's say, I don't believe the Bible, don't believe in God, but, mankind, we've got proof and evidence in mankind and what direction we're going with mankind. And when you look at the world today, it's pretty scary what direction we're going with mankind. So I choose to believe in something beyond mankind because we're on a destructive path.
And again, that's something I always have issue with.
Okay.
Religious people love to point out that this world is going to hell in a handbasket. And I don't know if I always agree with that. The kind of things that have been done, we'll say in the last 50 years or so, or a little bit longer than that, we've had major advances in science, which, we've gotten polio pretty much cured. Smallpox out of the equation. People's lifespans much longer than they ever were in the past.
Much longer.
There are a lot of good things going on in the world.
I agree. I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm not saying that, but when you listen to the news and you read the newspapers across the world, it's not getting better overall.
You know that newspapers. First of all, my politics indicate that things aren't going that great these last few years.
They're not.
However, I take a longer view of the trend and think, during the McCarthy years, things weren't going that well either, and they got better.
Yeah. So, anyway, we're going to go ahead and let you go at this point because we've got a matter of seconds left in the show.
All right.
Thanks for calling in.
We love you guys.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
We love you too.
As for anyone else who's watching, didn't get a chance to get on the air, tv@atheist-community.org. You can go ahead and write us there, and we'll read you those on the air if they're noteworthy. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you, Russell, for coming on and helping out, as always. And again, Southeast Corner Chili's will be there. Atheist-friendly people, please, you're more than welcome to come and join us for dinner. Probably in about the next 15 minutes or 20, well, about 40 minutes or so. But again, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to all the cast and crew for helping out. And we'll see you next week.